Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
A few weeks ago, we had a windstorm come through. It wasn't a tornado, but it was a windstorm that took down a lot of trees. We lost power at home, and it was a Friday night after not having power and having things to do. I looked on my phone and determined that power at my office was on, so I'm going to head to my office. So I drove to my office. It's not far; it's 3 or 4 miles, and I got within 100 yards of my office, and the road was closed. A line was down. I couldn't get through. It's like, well, you know what? I want to get to my office. I could tell my office had power. I know people who live next door. Power was on. I just want to get to my office. So I just dialed into GPS, and GPS gave me several options to get to my office. And so rather than going 100 yards, I kind of backtracked, or instead of going left, I went right and through a subdivision, and I had various options that I could take, but eventually I got to my office. This is emblematic of networking. Most people treat networking like a straight road. They think I need to get to that person, or if this person doesn't respond, I'm stuck. But that's not how networks work. A network is more like a spider web, if you will. Or you could envision it as a subway map or a highway system. Thousands of intersections, thousands of possible routes. When people get discouraged in networking, it's usually because they're thinking linearly instead of structurally. They think person A to person B equals success. But in reality, it looks more like person A to person B to C to D to E to F to opportunity. Or A to K to Q to M to opportunity. The path is rarely obvious in the beginning. Let's play with a little math. Suppose you have 1,000 LinkedIn connections. Someone you want to meet has 5,000 connections. And you discover you have 24 mutual connections. 24 people they know and you know. Already there's 24 possible paths. But it gets bigger, because one of those 24 people has their own network, and each of those mutual connections has 800 connections. That means 24 times 800, that's 19,200 additional second-degree pathways. Stick with me. Now layer your own network on top. Your 1,000 connections each have hundreds of connections. If each only averages 500, that creates 1,000 times 500,000 second-degree relationships, 500,000 possible relationship paths, and we haven't even touched third-degree connections yet. In network science, this expands exponentially, which means something really important. The problem is rarely that the person is unreachable. The real problem is this: we stop looking for the path. Imagine a spider web stretching across a doorway. Touch one strand and the entire web vibrates. That's what networks do. Every connection is connected to something else. Pull one thread and the web moves. And when you reach out to someone for help, you're not just activating that person, you're activating their web. And that web touches their friends, their colleagues, their former coworkers, their clients, college roommates, their neighbors, which means every conversation you have might quietly open 3 or 4 more doors you can't see. Networking is not a single introduction. It's a movement through a web. Think about it. Networking seldom fails people. What happens is most people stop networking too soon. They send one message, no reply, and they conclude, guess that didn't work. And that's like me driving to my office, seeing the road is closed and saying, well, I guess I can't get to my office. No, I'm not quitting. I'm just going to find another path. And it's the same thing with networking. When someone doesn't respond to you, someone tells you no, they can't help you, or they can't think, or all those, anybody they connect you to just doesn't work out, find somebody else. And this leads me to another mistake that people make. They search for the perfect introduction. They search for the perfect mutual contact, the perfect insider. But the truth is, you rarely need the perfect path. You just need a path. You just need persistence. Maybe someone who worked with them years ago, went to the same university, someone was on their team, college roommate, maybe they belong to the same association. A decent introduction often becomes a great one. And I see this time and again in networking where people I reach out to that I think are going to be that perfect introduction sometimes don't become that perfect introduction. They have their own agendas, their own reasons for not connecting me, and oftentimes the people that I think, you know what, I'm just going to take a chance on this, can be some of the greatest connections because they're connected people. They're thinking differently. They're thinking broader. They're not trying to protect a network necessarily. They're just trying to help me in return for things I've done for them. Think about it. You have one conversation and relationships start to take over. I remember years ago when I was working in public accounting, this was back in a time when they, certainly in that environment where they let you go, but they did it in a very kind sort of a way. They said, you know what, you're not working out here. You're going to get 3 months paid, use our facilities, use our phones, our system, our computers to help find yourself a job. And there was a guy I know, Jeff, and what he did, he got that tap on the shoulder and he didn't feel sorry for himself. Well, maybe he did, but it never seemed like it. He just reached out to people he knew and just said, I'm going to be leaving the firm and I'm looking for opportunities. Who do you think I should be talking to? Can you give me some names? He wasn't asking them for a job or anything like that. Some of those people didn't respond to him. Some of them just said, I really can't think of anybody. But a lot of those people gave him a couple of names, 2 or 3 people, maybe some introductions, maybe warmed them up, took him to lunch with people. And I watched Jeff through this whole thing. I was still working at the firm, obviously, and was watching him go through this. And this is old school. He didn't have his own computer. Many people didn't at this point in time. But he had a notebook, and he had notes with everybody, and it connected people. Everybody he had in that book, he had an indication of where they were connected from it. So he could trace back and see the types of different people, or the people that were creating connections for him. And someone might only give him one connection, but that one connection might be to that person who gives him 5 connections. And those 5 connections, he's given 2 connections. And so there was a lot of value in that one hub. And other connections might have gave him 3, and it didn't go anywhere, but then he would just try another route. And he had this whole notebook just filled with different people and how to follow up. And I don't know how he kept track of it all. Well, to be honest, that was his job, to find a job. So he had a way of doing it and had a system of keeping track. Computer certainly would have made it a lot easier, but that wasn't an option for him at the time. And he just kept working it. What was the end result? The end result was he didn't get a job. He got 3 job offers. And that was his next problem. Okay, how do I decide which of these 3 I should take? You know what he did? He went back to the network and talked to the people that he had interfaced with and said, if this is working out, I've got 3 opportunities. What do you think? What do you think about these opportunities? What might you know that's going on out there? What's your sense of what would be the best opportunity? And they helped him land in the perfect spot for him. The point was that he didn't make one call, it didn't work out, didn't have a job within a week, and didn't say, well, this isn't going to work. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'll just go collect unemployment. He didn't do that. He was just persistent. He's like, you know what? If this path doesn't work, I'm going to find another path. I'm just going to keep working down these paths until I find the opportunity that I want. One of my favorite ideas in networking is simple. Motion creates motion. Nothing happens until somebody does something. Every introduction creates another. Every conversation expands the web, your network. Every meeting activates more connections. You start with one thread and suddenly the entire web is moving again. Think back to that spider web. That's how opportunities appear, not through a single perfect moment. Sure, that single perfect moment would be great. It's the stuff of Hollywood, right? But really how networking it works is that it works through consistent movement through your network, making things happen one thing at a time. And when something doesn't work out, when you have that roadblock that says you can't get to the office or you can't meet this person that you want to meet, you know what? You just go back to that GPS moment, right? The road is closed, construction everywhere. For a split second, it feels like this trip might be over, right? Got to go back home. There's no power at home. But the GPS doesn't panic. It doesn't quit. It simply says recalculating. And then seconds later, that new route appears, or maybe other options. Your network works the same way. If one person doesn't respond, just recalculate. If an introduction doesn't happen, so what? Recalculate. If a path closes, recalculate. Because here's the truth. Between your network, their networks, and the networks beyond that, there are not 10 pathways to opportunity, not 100. There are thousands, maybe millions, which means that the opportunity you're looking for is almost certainly out there in that web. Your job isn't to try and find the perfect path. Your job is simply this, to keep moving through the network until the path reveals itself. Because in a real network, there's always another road. There's always another connection. There's always another way forward. Just like the GPS says, recalculating.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connections. All rights reserved.